Let me ask you something. Even though the number in your bank account hasn't changed yet, do you feel like something inside you has already broken open? Because that feeling, that quiet restlessness, that inner transformation with no explanation, that is wealth in its purest form. Not the kind measured only in money, but the kind that comes from where all fortunes, all legacies, all great achievements first take root, the mind. And understand this, every great fortune, every legacy that made it into history, every success that outlasted its era, didn't begin in the ground. It began as an invisible seed buried in a person's subconscious. If you're seeing these signs, it means that seed has started to take root. And maybe something stirs inside you when you hear that, because somewhere you already knew. The first sign that you're on the path to wealth is this. Ordinary life no longer comforts you the way it used to. It presses down on you like a weight. You feel it sharper than ever before. There was a time you went along with the same routines, drifting to work without purpose, spending money without intention, surrounding yourself with distractions and calling it a life. Now that life feels almost unbearable. And this is not disappointment. This is an awakening. Your mind is quietly rejecting everything that no longer fits your identity. It's pushing out the habits, the people, the beliefs that have kept you exactly where you are. Not just financially, but spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Real wealth begins the moment you start saying, "This is not who I am." That moment is the first turning point. External appearances no longer feed you. Empty conversations no longer satisfy you. You want strategy. You want substance. You want freedom. Not through luck, but through intention, through deliberateness, through full awareness. This hunger is a sign that you've crossed a threshold. You're beginning to walk with the posture of a man who has made a decision. And when a man truly decides from the inside, the world leans toward him. Not resistance, but flow. The next sign is this. You can no longer tolerate time being wasted the way you once could. Because you've understood, time is the true currency of the wealthy. The poor spend it, often without even realizing. Average people trade it for temporary pleasures. But those who build, those who truly grow, convert time into investment. Every passing second either becomes a brick in the structure of your future or vanishes forever. You're no longer living for the weekends, you're living for your vision. You've learned that 1 hour of real building is worth infinitely more than a year of wishful thinking, and because you've seen that truth, you've started guarding your time like a treasure. You're no longer saying yes to everything. You're saying no to every distraction, every hollow invitation, every person who drains your energy. Not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. Because you understand that saying no to the insignificant is saying yes to your destiny. You've developed an allergy to empty conversation, to mindless scrolling, to everything that pulls you away from your edge. You've understood that your energy is sacred, and your attention is your most valuable asset. The person who controls their attention controls their results, and you've started controlling yours. This too is a powerful sign. While others react impulsively to the outside world, you've started moving with intention. While others consume, you create. While others chase the next thing, you attract. Because you're no longer scattered, you're focused. And focus is the only hammer that breaks the chains of poverty. A focused person cannot be manipulated, cannot be shaken by comparison, cannot be knocked off their path. They walk with direction. And a person with direction is always wealthier than a person without one. No matter how full their bank account is, You've started thinking long-term, and that's the next sign. Regardless of how much money is in your account right now, your mind is reaching years ahead. You're no longer moving by emotional impulse. You're moving through systems. You're not thinking in days anymore. You're thinking in years. You're not just chasing income. You're building infrastructure, building character assets, accumulating skill assets, creating value. You've left behind the question, how does this make me feel today? And become a man who asks, what will this earn me 5 years from now? That shift may look small, but the entirety of empires is hidden inside that single question. Your relationship with money has changed, and this is the very essence of growth. You used to fear it, struggle for it, see it as a master. Now you respect it, because you've understood that it isn't a master, but a servant. Not a savior, but an amplifier. And most importantly, you now see money not as the reward of effort alone, but as the natural consequence of value. You've stopped trading your hours for dollars and started multiplying your worth through leverage, through ideas, through systems. This is wealth consciousness. Wealth is not a number. It's a mindset. And your mindset is no longer poor. Poor minds blame, complain, and wait. They wait endlessly. Wealthy minds create, solve, and move. You've stopped blaming your past. You've stopped waiting for permission. You've stopped looking outside for signs. Because you are the sign now. You are the one who moves first. You are the one saying, "It starts with me." And this is power, the kind of power that precedes real prosperity. Your commitment to growth is another powerful sign. You're no longer just consuming, you're absorbing. You're reading more, asking deeper questions, actively seeking out conversations that challenge you. You've replaced gossip with mentorship. You've replaced complaints with commitments. You've replaced theory with execution, even imperfect execution. And this practice, this movement that isn't perfect but is consistent, creates momentum. Momentum is the most valuable asset a person building toward wealth can possess. Not speed, but momentum. Because speed fades and disappears, but momentum compounds. Every disciplined day, every focused hour, every decisive step you take in a hard moment adds invisible weight to your character. And weight creates gravity. People feel it. Opportunities feel it. When the world senses your seriousness, it quietly responds. You're becoming serious now, both in your past and right in this moment. Even when your mood shifts, your mission doesn't. You smile more, not because life has gotten easier, but because you're in alignment. When things go wrong, you no longer collapse, no longer panic, no longer manufacture excuses. You no longer talk about your goals the same way you used to, because now you're actually living them. You walk like someone who expects to win. You think, speak, and plan like a man who has already arrived in his mind. Every great man I've ever studied had one thing in common. They walked ahead of their results. They considered themselves worthy before success appeared. They acted as if the money had already come. They planned as if the vision were already real. And now you're doing the same. Your language is changing. And this may be one of the most powerful signs of all. You're visualizing in the mornings. You're speaking over your life in the language of victory. Because you know your words create, you no longer throw them around carelessly. You're no longer saying, "I can't, maybe, I hope." You're saying, "I will, I am. It's done." You've erased doubt from your vocabulary. You've stopped replaying stories of failure. You've turned your voice into a tool of prophecy, describing your future with precision, with faith, with clarity. And when a person controls their language, they control their reality. First the words, then the world. Your environment is changing, and that's another proof that you're on the path. You're leaving behind comfort-oriented communities, not because you're superior to them, but because you're building something bigger. The wider your vision, the more selective your environment must be. You've understood that proximity is power, that poverty is contagious, but so is greatness. That's why you've begun placing yourself in spaces where excellence is the standard, not the exception. You've learned that you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to be in rooms where smart people are talking. You've become a student of wealth, not just in income, but in principle, in energy, in legacy. You're no longer just searching for how to make money. You're building a philosophy, a system, a code to live by. And this code is carrying you forward with every passing day. Difficulties are no longer breaking you, they're shaping you. Where pressure once collapsed you, now it builds you. You've understood that every obstacle carries a hidden lesson, that every failure holds valuable data inside it. You're no longer running from pain. You're transforming it. You're extracting the wisdom from it, converting it into fuel, and pressing forward. The ability to move through difficulty with grace is the clearest sign of someone ready for great wealth. Because wealth requires a strong frame, and that frame is character. If you're seeing these signs, your character is being actively built. You're keeping your word. You're finishing what you start. You're showing up even when the emotional motivation is gone. You're becoming a more and more trustworthy person. And trust always comes before transfer. This is a spiritual law. When you are trustworthy, wealth finds you. Because wealth is energy, and energy always flows toward structure. When you build a solid structure through habits, vision, service, and consistency, the energy of abundance begins to move. Not because you've manipulated the system, but because you have become the system. You're no longer predicting, you're executing. You're no longer hoping, you're building. And this, my friend, is the clearest sign of all. There is a turning point in every person's journey, a moment when they begin to change not because of what they have, but because of who they are. This change is silent. It doesn't come with applause or announcement. It arrives in the form of new standards. It appears when you start holding yourself to a higher level, even when no one is watching. It reveals itself when you begin doing what most people won't, because you know your future demands it. If you're seeing these signs, you're no longer chasing money. You're becoming the kind of man that money chases. The truly wealthy man never leads with money. He leads with value. He leads with clarity. He leads with purpose. Because he understands that wealth isn't pursued, it's attracted. You attract wealth by being useful, trustworthy, excellent. Every time you increase your usefulness, your wealth potential multiplies. The world is full of people who want to be rich, but the world is built by people who are useful. Now look at your habits. If you're seeing these signs, your habits have begun aligning with long-term gain rather than short-term satisfaction. You're no longer eating just for pleasure. You're eating for energy. You're no longer sleeping to escape. You're sleeping to heal, to restore. You're no longer staring at a screen to pass time. You're reading to deepen your knowledge. These are not small things. These are concrete evidence that your identity is fundamentally shifting. And identity is the true engine of wealth. When you change how you see yourself, you change what you allow into your life. A poor man justifies, rationalizes, defends his bad habits. A wealthy man builds on discipline, on intentionality, on self-respect. Discipline is not a punishment. It is a privilege. It protects your time. It protects your emotions. It protects your focus. Without it, nothing great can be sustained. With it, everything becomes possible. If your mornings are becoming more structured, if your environment is becoming more conscious, if your calendar is becoming more intentional, this is not a coincidence. This is the behavior of a man preparing not to survive, but to leave a legacy. Look, if you're still thinking like someone just trying to get by, you cannot carry wealth. You have to start thinking like a man who carries a legacy on his shoulders. The man who carries a legacy doesn't waste time arguing. He doesn't chase cheap approval. He doesn't measure his worth in applause. He is bound by principles, faithful to his word, trusting of his vision. He understands that real wealth isn't measured by how much you earn, but by how much you build, how much you protect, and how much you can pass forward without the next generation having to start from zero. A new generation should not have to begin from scratch. This too is a sign that you're on the path. Your relationship with work has matured, and that's another proof. You no longer want the easy path. You've stopped looking for shortcuts. You've let go of idolizing passive income before you've actively become valuable. You've understood that leverage only works when value already exists. You now see hard work not as a burden to escape, but as a sacred process to master. You see your effort not as suffering, but as a passage, that narrow gate that opens into greatness. Because every repetition, every focused hour, every conscious action compounds into competence. And competence is a currency. Wealthy people are the true master of one thing. Not everything, but one thing. They stay committed. They refine. They simplify. And in that simplicity, real power resides. You're no longer swayed by trends. You're no longer jumping from one idea to the next. You've chosen your tool. You've chosen your mission. And now you're going deep. Because shallow effort produces shallow results. But depth creates dominion. You've learned to manage your emotions. And this too is a powerful sign. Where you once reacted, you now respond. Where you once panicked, you now pause. Where you once internalized everything, you now assess with composure. You've understood that emotional intelligence is not weakness, it is a weapon. A weapon that allows you to move strategically while others move by impulse. A weapon that allows you to make decisions based on principles, not pressure. And this inner power makes you a man capable of leading, building, multiplying. Multiplication is the key, not just to money, but to the self. When you start thinking in terms of multiplying your time, your skills, your vision, your message, your mind has entered the field of wealth. Because wealthy minds don't just spend, they multiply. Poor minds only consume. They wait for the next thrill, the next pleasure, the next dopamine hit. Wealthy minds delay immediate gratification in favor of multiplication, and that delay, over time, becomes freedom. That's why instead of scrolling, you're learning. That's why instead of running from stress, you're building systems. That's why instead of burning your energy, you're converting it into investment. You're now running every action through a filter. Asset or liability? Every habit either grows you or shrinks you. Because you've seen this truth, you're making your decisions not from your current emotions, but from your future self. This is a turning point most people never reach in their entire lives. The moment your vision becomes stronger than your emotions. The moment your why outweighs your weakness. The moment you choose based on outcome, not comfort. This is not just growth. This is true readiness for abundance. You're now preparing not just with goals, but with structure. You're tracking your inputs. You're measuring your energy. You're auditing your time. You're monitoring your spending, keeping account of your behaviors. Not because you're obsessed, but because you're accountable. And accountability is the true foundation of freedom. A person who cannot be accountable cannot be wealthy, because wealth always flees from a disorganized life. But it is drawn to discipline, to stewardship, to intentionality, always. Your inner voice has grown stronger. You're no longer condemning yourself for every mistake. You're learning, recalibrating, moving forward. You're speaking over your life in the language of power. You're declaring truth. Every morning you choose which voice to follow. And now you're choosing the voice of strength. You no longer need exaggeration. You've broken free from hollow motivation. You're no longer impressed by flashy lifestyles built on nothing. You respect consistency. You genuinely admire humility. You seek wisdom. You'd rather be quiet and truly successful than loud and empty. And this inner shift, this depth of character, is the most powerful magnet for lasting wealth. Let's talk about the invisible. If you're seeing these signs, you've become increasingly sensitive to energy. You can sense when something is misaligned. You can detect when a person's spirit doesn't match their words. You can feel when an opportunity looks good on paper but isn't right. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is discernment. It means your intuition has sharpened. The wealthy person trusts their instincts, not from emotion, but from deep awareness. You're no longer paranoid. You're conscious. You notice the patterns in your blind spots, and this awareness gives you the power to correct course before damage is done. What separates the person who protects what they build from the person who loses it is not intelligence. It is awareness. The humility to adapt when others grow arrogant, to ask better questions, to keep growing. If you see this humility in yourself, you're standing in a sacred place. Because the path to wealth is truly sacred. It is not for everyone. It is not for the crowd. It is for the one who stays when times get hard, who decides while others keep postponing, who sacrifices short-term approval for long-term abundance. That person is you now. You're not just wanting more. You're becoming more. Your life may not fully reflect this yet. You may still be in the early stages, still climbing. But inside, quietly and certainly, you know you're already different. Your mind is sharper. Your intentions are purer. Your actions are bolder. You're not the same anymore. And you will never go back. This is what wealth truly is. Not just having, but being. And every sign you're seeing right now is the proof. If you're still seeing these signs and, more importantly, still living them, let me tell you something very few people will say out loud. Wealth is no longer a possibility for you. It's an inevitability. Why? Because you've already become the kind of person wealth was designed to serve. You no longer need to chase fortune with your hands out like a beggar. You've earned the right to expect prosperity, not through deserving, but through alignment. Your thoughts, your decisions, your actions, your standards now reflect abundance at their core. Look at how you approach your mornings, not as a burden, but as sacred ground. You rise not in panic, but in purpose. Instead of reacting, you prepare. You direct your day. You don't wait for it to carry you. And every day that begins with intention is a seed of wealth planted in the soil. Compound that intention across months, years, decades. There is no force in this world that can stop what is coming for you. Wealth is not for the scattered and accidental. It flows toward those who move with consciousness. And you, my friend, are someone who moves with consciousness. Even your goals have changed. Where you once chased status, you now pursue meaning. Where you once wanted money to feel powerful, you now know that power is the ability to control yourself. You've discovered that real freedom isn't about buying more things. It's about needing fewer things. And with that posture, you've stepped into mastery. Because the person who needs nothing is the most dangerous person alive. They cannot be manipulated. Their attention cannot be scattered. They cannot be bought. And for that very reason, wealth is naturally drawn to them. You've learned that the wealthiest people are not those who accumulate, but those who create. You've stepped into a value creation mindset. You're no longer asking, "What can I take?" You're asking, "What can I give that grows exponentially?" This is what separates the wealthy from the hopeful. The hopeful make wishes. The wealthy serve. They understand that money follows value, and that value flows from a refined mind and a sharpened skill set. You are sharpening now. Every day you think deeper. Every day you solve faster. Every day you speak with greater clarity. This is it, the proof of a man preparing for great achievement. Every major financial breakthrough is preceded by an internal shift. Identity. If your identity has changed, your reality has already begun to change. You're no longer saying, "I'm trying." You're saying, "I'm becoming." You're no longer saying, "Maybe someday." You're saying, "It's already started. I'm catching up to it." You walk as if it's already done. You work as if it's already done. You plan as if it's already done. And the world responds to this internal shift, because energy doesn't lie. When your mind decides, reality aligns with it. You're building even in silence. You no longer need constant external validation to know you're on the right path. You've built the habit of showing up even when no one notices. You've untangled yourself from the need for approval. You've fully owned your own accountability. And this self-respect, this integrity, is the true essence of great men. Wealth without character is short-lived. But wealth built on identity, intention, and inner power lasts across generations. The question is no longer if, it's when. The man you're becoming is inevitable, because you're now making your decisions not from your current limitations, but from your future self. You're no longer asking, "Can I afford this?" You're asking, "What would the man I'm becoming choose?" You've stopped budgeting for your fears and started investing in your faith. You've turned every dollar into a soldier, every task into a message, every encounter into an opportunity. And because of that, wealth has no other choice. You're speaking in complete sentences now, communicating with conviction, owning your time, protecting your energy, moving with rhythm, looking forward, asking questions. You're no longer waiting for life to assign you value. You're assigning it to yourself. And when a person knows their own worth, the world quietly yields to them. You've made peace with solitude. Where you once ran from it, you now treasure it, because solitude has become your workshop, your training ground, your vision board, your altar of purification. The person who can sit quietly and build something in the dark is the person who can manage abundance in the light. Most people flee from silence because it forces them to face themselves. But you faced yourself, and you didn't step back. You grew. You've stopped outsourcing your discipline to others. You've stopped holding others accountable for your habits. You no longer need a reminder to do what you said you'd do. You keep your word even in private. And when your private behavior aligns with the declaration you make to the world, that is real wealth. Because real wealth is alignment. No divided self, No double standards. One mind, one mission, one man. You've developed a vision, not the kind sold on posters, but the kind carved into your soul. You see your future before it's visible to anyone else. You give life to barren places. You build when no one is there. You plant seeds while others complain about the weather. And because of that, you will harvest what others only dreamed of, not by chance, not through inheritance, but through law. The law of cause and effect. The law of faith. The law of accountability. The law of mental clarity. If you're truly walking this path, there's one final sign that cannot be ignored. You've become immovable. You're no longer shaken. Delays don't break your courage. Rejection doesn't stop you. Setbacks no longer bring you down, because you've trained your mind to interpret every pain as preparation. You've mastered the art of extracting profit from adversity. You are now an alchemist, turning resistance into results, loss into leverage, delay into direction. You've made excellence your default, not something you do when you feel like it, but who you are even when no one is watching. You've made integrity your compass. You've made purpose your currency. You're no longer talking about goals. You're talking about systems. Because systems produce, goals inspire, but systems build. And you, my friend, are building every single day. You're not chasing grand victories, you're accumulating small ones. Because you now know that the compound effect of daily discipline will, in time, outlast every overnight success story. You're not building for next week. You're building for your legacy. You're not here to impress. You're here to last. If you're seeing these signs, I need you to hear this. You're not just on the right path. You're far beyond it. You're not late. You're not lost. You are being formed. And everything you're carrying inside right now, the habits, the posture, the clarity, the self-belief, none of it is a coincidence. These are confirmations. Confirmations that you are walking in alignment with the man you were always meant to be. That man is already inside you. He is the one who rises early, who works instead of complaining, who executes instead of hesitating, who speaks the truth, who lives the truth, who builds the truth. He doesn't just wear success, he embodies it. And every single day, that man is becoming stronger, sharper, more courageous, more free. You owe the world no explanation. You owe no one proof. What you owe yourself is continuation. What you owe yourself is consistency. What you owe your future family is the version of you that doesn't quit when it gets hard. What you owe your calling is a man who answers without excuses. So stand tall, walk steady, keep building. The world may not notice today, but wealth noticed long ago. Because who you are right now, disciplined, aligned, clear, and growing, is exactly the person wealth has been looking for from the very beginning. If this video made you think, like it and subscribe. Don't miss the next one. See you.